Hello, everyone. I would like to start off by thanking Sarah and everyone at PSC Web for inviting me to speak to you all and really giving me the opportunity to talk to you remotely. So I really, really appreciate that. And I'm excited about the time that we're going to spend together today. Um, I am Jenny Lee Fowler. I like to say that I am my 11-year-old daughter's full-time personal assistant. My side gig is actually being the director of social media strategy at MIT. I am a proud Android user. Hello to all my green bubbles, fellow green bubbles out there. And I do fancy myself a bit of a dissectologist, a novice dissectologist, which I recently found out is someone who likes to do jigsaw puzzles. So maybe you just discovered that you are a dissectologist as well. Before we get into it, I do want to do a land acknowledgement. The land on which MIT sits is the traditional unceded territory of the Wampanoag Nation. We acknowledge the painful history of genocide and forced occupation of their territory, and we honor and respect the many diverse Indigenous people connected to this land on which we gather from time immemorial. Okay. If you're not familiar with MIT's social media presence, we are the most active on these platforms. We did just launch a Be Real team, so we haven't been on Be Real for very long, a month really. So that's our latest effort, and I'm actually really excited about that. But in its entirety, we have more than 6 million total number of social media followers, and that's on all of our active channels. This is something that did not happen overnight. You know, it did happen organically, but it took me a number of years. Remember, I've been in my position for like 9 years. So I always tell people social media, organic social media in particular, is a marathon. It's not a sprint. It did happen over time, but I really feel like you can do this. Anyone can build a large audience for themselves if that's what you're going for. But today I'm really, the first part of my talk is to really go over the fact that I feel like social media has a perception problem. But let's start off by going over the numbers, right? There are almost 5 billion social media users on the planet. And the last time I checked, there were like 8 million, or excuse me, 8 billion people in total on planet Earth. So more than half of the people that live on this planet that we call home are active social media users, right? Last year, and I do apologize. I tried to find Canadian numbers to compare with the US numbers, but I don't know if my Google is biased toward America or what it is, but I couldn't actually pinpoint these exact numbers in Canadian dollars. So sorry, you're all getting the US averages, but in 2023, social media ad spend in the US totaled almost $64 billion. That's in comparison to TV ad spend in the US, which is around $60 billion, right? So it's like it's like giving it a run for its money, but my guess is that social media ad spend will only increase from here on out and TV ad spend will decrease. And my guess is a bulk of this money, of this total, was actually spent on the Super Bowl game and one day, right? But all in all, like, social media is a huge business. It's a $250 billion industry, approximately $250 billion in the world. So, you know, this is definitely an industry that's not going anywhere. It's growing and it's sizable, right? It's a big player on the table. But the problem is when a lot of us, or maybe when some of us, think about social media as a person, we think about this, right? We think that social media is a little kid. And don't worry, most of the images in my presentation are AI generated. I actually use Dolly, so you might think you know this person, but you don't know this person. This person actually in reality does not exist. But yes, for the sake of this presentation, this kid is sort of like a visual representation of what we view in our heads when we think of social media. A 5-year-old kindergartner. But the reality is, social media is a full-grown adult, right? Social media has graduated from college and has been in the workforce for like several years now. In fact, in the US, social media probably would not probably would have been kicked off of their parents' health benefits several years ago and are required to actually sign up for their own health benefits because they're full-grown adults. Um, the thing is, it doesn't match. Like I don't okay, so I don't know if y'all know who this is. This is Carlos Alvarez. He was Wimbledon last year and was champion of Wimbledon at the age of 20. When he won, he was age 20. Now, when we don't doubt his expertise, right? We're like, okay, he's holding the Wimbledon tournament trophy, like he is a legitimate champion. If he was to give me if he were to give me advice on my forehand or backhand or how to play tennis, I would not doubt him as an expert in his field. Like he is a true professional, so I would stop and listen to him. The thing is, this is a representation of the average institution, university president in the US and Canada, right? Again, AI generated, not a real person, but this is like the average age. And most of the presidents in the US, school presidents in the US and Canada are male. And so I think when this person thinks about social media or thinks about talking to their social media manager, they think they're talking to like a kindergartner. They think, okay, this person is like a child, right? Like what do they really know? And feasibly, he feels like he's talking to his grandchild. But I mean, but let's be totally honest. A full grown version of social media could also be this man's grandchild at this moment as well. But what we have to do is we have to start showing that we are the professional. We're not just a social media dabbler. We're not just a social media user. We are a social media professional. We are the experts in our field. Okay. So we have to show that, but I just want to get to, at first, you have to believe it. Like, that you are the expert, my friends, all of us sitting in here, you all sitting, watching me, you are the expert. And I want you to know it. I want you to own it, and I want you to show it. And I will give you tips on how you present yourself and how you show it, right? But let's just give a quick definition of what an expert is. And this is the Merriam-Webster version of what an expert is. It's having, involving, or displaying special skill or knowledge derived from training or experience. This makes you an expert. Like, you're in your school's channels every day. You are your school's voice in these channels. You know your channel's audiences inside and out. So you are the expert that, you have this skill derived from training or experience. That's you. So it, right? You are the strategist. You think of the long-term goals and you plan out how you want to achieve them and how you make adjustments along the way, right? You're not only the strategist, but you're the tactician. You are employing and implementing your plans. You are in these spaces every day. And you're also the data analyst. You're like mining the information and you're putting together the story it tells you. You're making informed decisions, future decisions on content and on strategy based on what you learned from the metrics. So you know it. And look, it's really important for you to embrace that. Like, you are the only one, like literally sometimes. Like, I think, we should acknowledge there are some larger schools, larger institutions that they get it. They said, social media is where we are going to reach future audiences. We have to like make sure our brand presence is strong, that we show our culture in these spaces. And those institutions have large teams. They have like a director and a manager that implements the day-to-day, and they have content creators, and it rightfully so. Like, that's the way it should be, right? But a lot of schools have like smaller departments and centers and labs and programs and of course the schools, and they all have their own social media presence, and oftentimes it's a one person communications team. And so it's you are the one. So fix your crown, get your hype squad around you, give me a call if you need me to tell you, look, you are the expert, right? So like own it. You are the expert in these spaces, right? So the thing is, we are going to lean into our leadership era. You're the strategist and you're doing the work, but you are going to show that you are the advisor in these spaces. You make the recommendations. You know how to like navigate these spaces, and you're going to show your leadership teams that you are the advisor in these spaces, right? Okay, so how do we do that? This is Shirley Chisholm. She was the first Black American woman to be elected into the US Congress. Now, Shirley has said a lot of really smart, cool things that I love. But one of the things that I really, really enjoy that she said, and I actually write about this in my book as well, is that if they don't give you a seat at the table, bring in a folding chair. Friends, bring in your folding chair, right? And so what does your folding chair look for you, or what is your folding chair when you are a social media manager? Well, a lot of times that's data. You lean with data, or you lead with data. So that might be a quick email, and of course you want to work it out that it's maybe you send it to your super. I mean, there's some semantics involved, right? You want to just make sure everything you're doing kosher. You can send your vice president emails, it's fine. But for me, it's my supervisor that I report to, and then it's the vice president of communication. So he's like my boss's boss, essentially. And my supervisor has set it up where I have direct conversations and direct emails with the VP of comms, and that's fine, right? You can send monthly reports, you can send quarterly reports, but the whole idea is to kind of give them good news so they learn your name before you have to deliver bad news. Like it could be good news, like know what their priorities are, and maybe there was some content that support their priorities or their passion projects or things that are particularly important to them, and say this performed really well, or this content or this quote that you gave at commencement was our best performing post of that day. Like give them good news and give them things to look forward to, and then they'll start to like know your name, right? So that when you have to deliver bad news, it's not the first time they've heard your name. It's not like, okay, what's going, if they don't know your name, they might be like, what's going on and who is this, right? You don't want that to happen, right? So when you have to deliver bad news, you want to include your recommendations and your reasoning for them. So it's not just delivering the bad news. Again, you're saying like, look, I'm the leader, I'm the expert in this space. Like this is bad, but maybe it's not internet bad. Like give them context. It's not internet bad. It's just maybe sort of like in higher ed, our own city bad, or it's like it's bad and it's not internet bad, but maybe it is bad among like higher ed in our niche of higher ed bad. So you want to give them context, and you want to give them steps on how to move forward, right? Again, it's like you are the advisor. You're the person to come to seek out recommendations and ask for advice. And in a crisis, you want to use social listening and monitoring to give them information they would otherwise not have, because they're not in these spaces. Use these platforms, right? You are the one, and not only that, you're representing the institution's name, brand, voice. You know the audience. You are the keeper and the stewards of these channels. So you are the person. So, this past year, it was really chaotic on college campuses across the US, MIT included. And there were days when I would give there's a group of people, there's a group of us like that work in media and communications that I would send like these brief updates to, right? And they weren't end of day updates. They were, sometimes maybe they could be, but there were things that were like I would send them almost hourly updates because something would happen in real time. And let me tell you something, we, our institution partnered with big media agencies, public relations agencies, and a portion of what they do is to help give like social media snapshots, do social listening and social monitoring. But the thing is, these large agencies with very, very big prestigious names, they use third-party tools and they do like they sweep the internet for like keywords and and mentions and they're looking for like big targets and influencers. But the thing is, like the these are your at mentions. You're looking at your channels and you're seeing the conversations. You're seeing who's having the conversations, and they might not know, who is important in your community. So I have found it a lot of times that I can see and I spot things that the agencies don't see because like you're in it. And this is the part where like the algorithm really, you can use the algorithm and it comes into your advantages because it's your channel, it's your brand. They deliver you things that potentially, large agencies cannot see or do not see, right? But it's complementary. I'm not saying that the agencies like are bad. They're very, very helpful. They do a lot of the listening and social listening. They give leadership these big swaths of like information that, frankly, in this situation, like you probably don't have the time to do that sort of like deep dive into like these large swaths of like communication and of the internet, really. But it's complementary. While they can see these large pictures and big numbers, you can like hone in on like, oh, this professor is saying this about this professor, or, this faculty member is being particularly, passionate about this particular subject. So, or in real time, like, on this day, I was actually seeing like these high school students are posting that they're on the train and they're headed here. And I think they'll be here in like 15 minutes. Like, the value that you can bring is very, very different and it's complementary to what they're using. But also keep in mind that, there's big name agencies and they have very impressive names. But at the end of the day, it's like they're tasking this to like a 23-year-old to do the social listening and monitoring for you as a client, right? But they don't have the historic knowledge that you do. They don't know exactly what's important and they don't know what they're looking for besides keywords in your name. And so sometimes that's why like you bring even more value to the table. And my social like updates, there was a very specific group, but toward as we went on, more of the president's team, more of MIT's president's team would ask me to actually include them on social briefs or in updates because they found them so valuable and they didn't want to wait for like the vice president to give it to them. They wanted it firsthand. So, and again, in these instances, it's really, really, really important for you to know your audience, as you do with your channels. Like you do this anyway, you know how to do this, but your audience is very different. In this case, your audience could be one person. It could be the president of this institution or university, or it could be just like a handful of people. But it's the people that want, you want them to hear your recommendation. At the end of the day, they might say, no, we don't want to do that, but at least you are there to give them your input and give them the knowledge and give them your perspective. So like, know your audience. When you do send them these emails or monthly reports, educate and define it every step of the way. You don't, again, you have to know that these are not people who grew up using social media. They may not still use social media. It's possible they have never even like logged in or set up an account ever. So you have to like define things along the way. Like if I say this reel, you know, is catching a lot of attention, I don't just end it at reel. I'll say I just define it within as I explain. So like this reel, which is a vertical video in Instagram, is catching. So they don't, so you kind of define it along the way. You want to use the terms, but just don't leave them hanging. Like they don't know what the difference is, between like a vertical video in one platform or another platform, or if it's a feed post or story, like they don't know what the differences are, again, because you are the expert. So you just have to make them educated along the way. Don't make it a thing. Just know your audience, use their language. There's very, sometimes when leadership or people, they have, again, passion projects, or they've got terminology, they've got phrases, they've got goals that are very, very specific to them. So you want to use their language. There was one time I worked for or reported to a vice president, where the times where I did get to have a meeting with them, I made sure that I made a PowerPoint presentation for everything that I wanted to get through. And I actually used quotes to like quote what they said back to them, right? I said it's almost acknowledging like, look, this is really key. And I've heard that this is a goal of yours, and this is how I'm supporting it. So you really, really want to use their language. In these cases, especially, if I go back, like in the cases where it was like so chaotic, we had like the updates were coming so fast. But remember, you don't want to spam them. You want to use their judgment. Like they don't need every bit of information. Like again, think of like the president and the president's cabinet. Like you want to, like, you make the assessments, you give them what you think will help them make a decision, right? That's sort of like your position as an advisor, as a leader in the space, is that that's what's important. It's your historic knowledge, it's your knowledge of the culture, your knowledge of the institution, and that's what you bring to the table. And you give them the snippets that will help them in the end make the best decision they can. And I would be remiss to not talk about generative AI and Chat GPT, because y'all, you can utilize generative AI or Chat GPT to help you with this process. Like, I think that if I had this tool, like, 10 years ago, it would have been really, really, really helpful. Like, you can literally upload a speech or article written by your targeted person. Like maybe it's the vice president, or maybe it's the president, whose ever attention that you're trying to get to, upload it, right? And then upload your email and ask ChatGPT to edit it using the same voice and tone. Like you want it to sound like they communicate, right? Or ask it to give you words or phrases that the person seems to favor. Like, maybe upload a couple of their speeches, or maybe, even a transcript of the last meeting that you were in, and see what they say, like serendipitously, what phrases they're using naturally, and use those phrases when you're communicating with them. So I think this is a tool that you can really help you, right? Move further into in your career. It will help you communicate with other professionals, and it will communicate with leadership, because then you'll start you sounding and talking like them. Like you've heard the phrase, don't dress for the job you have, dress for the job that you want. This is kind of the same thing, but in manner and voice and tone and email communication, which is really, really key. And there's this phrase that I know that you've all heard, and people say it's all about who you know. It's about networking, and if you know a lot of people, you can like kind of use their names and leverage who they know. I think this is not true. I mean, I think I like to flip it on its head, because I think it's all about who knows you. Like, I know a lot of people. Like I know a lot of people, but I don't know that that gets me anything or gets me anywhere. That person has to recognize that they know me in order for it to be advantageous to me. Like, do does someone know me well enough to say, like, if they're saying, can you recommend someone for X, Y, and Z? And then immediately you come to their mind. They're like, oh, yes, I have someone that can do that for you. Let me set up an introduction. Or if like, who knows you well enough to say, look, give me your resume, give me your cover letter, and I will directly hand it to the managing editor. Like, it's their reputations on the line too when they give them your name. So they have to know you well enough to be able to vouch for you, to be able to think of you, like, when it comes. And that's what you're wanting here, right? You want the president of your school to say, let's ask the social media manager what they think about this comment in Instagram, like, or what they think about the situation in X and how to handle it, right? Like, this is what you want to happen as you move into your, as you become your advisor, as an advisor, and move into your leadership role. Because whether you started off with a folding chair, right? Or whether you started off like in an actual meeting office chair, it doesn't matter because you're in that room. And once you're in that room and you deliver and they remember that your name and you prove to be a valuable asset, you will stay in that room, right? Then you're there. But there's a second part of this where we have to think about the people or the positions we held on our way to being in that room, or those that come in after us, right? We need to rewrite our job descriptions, and this is difficult, but it's really, really necessary. So let's go back in time just for a brief moment. In the early days of the internet, where it really, really was the wild, wild west, there are so many of us that, like my colleagues and I, and we talk, and we were literally like, oh my gosh, like, I started this institution's like Facebook page with my own, using my own like email and cell phone number, and they still use it to this day. Like, there's so many of my colleagues, we joke about how we're just like, yeah, we kind of like didn't know what we were doing, but we started this Twitter account, or we started this Facebook account. And that's how, like, really it got started. Like, in the early days of social media, there was an eager intern. Maybe back then it was an intern, or there's a person like a communications coordinator or an executive assistant, or a web editor or a web developer, or whoever that was a part of a department that said, hey, like, do we have a Facebook account? I can start one. It was usually someone that was interested in doing that raised their hand and said, I can kind of start this. But what happened was the social media duties sort of got like swept in with that person's job, and it became other duties as assigned, because of this, because because of the eagerness of that person. The problem is that the duties of social media kept growing, right? They didn't shrink. There's like more. It's more. It never shuts off. When crisis happens, you're listening. The comments don't stop. Like, it just, there is no, like, it's not a 9 to 5 thing. And they're kept on, it wasn't just Facebook and X, Twitter back then. It grew, it became Instagram, and then it became LinkedIn, and then, so it's a growing thing. And so while, the person only has like a certain amount of time in their day, social media kept on taking more and more and more of that person's time. So it wasn't the same social media as when we first raised our hands and said, hey, are we on Facebook? If it's cool, I'll start a Facebook page for our group. It is really, really not, it's not the same, right? And the problem is that it just continues to be swept under this person's position. So, even at our institution, I know that there are like one person communications teams, or there's one communications director, or a communications coordinator, or an executive assistant, or an administrative assistant, or maybe like that have social media in their list of responsibilities, but not in their title, or they're not getting the right resources for it, right? So it really, really is time for us to uncouple social media from other jobs, because it's a full-time position. I trust me, I am the one person that is 100% dedicated to social media at MIT. Like I am a part of the Institute Communications Office of Communications. So I am a part of a team. I do work with our content creators, but I am the one person 100% dedicated to this. And trust me, I have more than enough to do, right? There could probably, I need a manager. Like I'm having the discussions that there needs to be someone as my position grows into more like crisis comms, like supporting leadership team. I need someone to handle the day-to-day, right? We need to uncouple social media from these positions if it's something that's really important, right? Like we need to have really, really, really honest conversations with those, our supervisors, or maybe with the deans, or whoever it may be, right? Because the goal is not just to be on a social media platform. Like, if we're like, hey, we're on Instagram. Oh, that's great. Like, how many follows do you have? None. How many likes do you have on average, or views do you have on your, not like, why are we doing this? Like, we're such busy people, and especially when social media is a part of someone's job, like they could be that's like a valuable time. Like the time is almost the only like that's such a valuable resource. Like that person can be utilizing that time to do some, like the myriad of other things that they are tasked to do. So why do we keep doing this? Like, Albert Einstein said insanity, this is his definition of insanity. I love it. Insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. If you're just like giving, your poor communications coordinator, the task of like doing social media, and you keep on like just using the same content, not giving them any resources, and utilizing the same content for like every single platform, but you want them to keep on opening new account. It's not, it, it's crazy. It's crazy. It is what it is, and it's not gonna work. So you really have to make those choices, because the misconception is that we our main competition is with each other. Like, Ohio State University is like battling, I don't know, Michigan State, I know, university for the same audience. That's not true. Like we are vying against everyone. Like these are some of the brands that all of us are competing with for in today's attention economy. Where if we're trying to reach Gen Z, we're trying to reach Gen Alpha. Like it's all content. Everything it's so much content out there. And if if your poor little department is just putting out, I mean, really think of the content that you're putting out, and think of the content that like Beyonce and Taylor Swift is putting out. And and even if it's a niche audience, like is it reaching that audience? Like, you're fighting with these folks for with like for algorithm time, or like you're for algorithm attention. So it's not just with other schools or with other centers, right? And let me tell you, like Taylor Swift has a team. Like she understands the value, and understands how important it is, like to create good content. So she has a team of people doing this for her. So as much as I am rooting for, all of those who are doing social media for higher ed, like all of my, you know, coordinators and my executive assistants and my admin, I am rooting for you. But man, if it came to me like putting money on it, I please, I would not hesitate. I would put money on Taylor Swift and her team if it came to, who's going to get more eyes on their content. And that's who we're going up against, right? Like for me, I want to see commencement speaker announcements that are like as exciting as album drops. Like that's what we're working toward. So we need to have very, very honest conversations with our supervisors, like our teams, like whoever it may be, because, social media is a full-time position. It's not like a period, like summer internship. It's not other duties as assigned. So it's really important for us to rewrite our current job descriptions and at the very least add social media manager to your title. This is what I did when I worked at the Harvard Kennedy School before I came to MIT. Social media just started to take a bigger and bigger chunk out of my day. And so, I really sat down with my supervisor and said, look, I think it's important to put it in the title. Because it's more than half of what I do now, which is why at that time I went from web editor to web editor and social media manager. Or rewrite your current job description to advocate for a promotion, which is what I did at MIT. Like it helps when your supervisor is very like is on your top, is rooting for you, on your side, wants you to develop. But I was again like I was doing the job of a director, and so if you're doing that job, that should be your title, right? And you should be paid accordingly. Like think about this, right? Like so we rewrote my job description so to help me to go from a manager to a director. And if anything else, like utilize the exit interview. In fact, when I left Harvard Kennedy School, like my position became two separate positions, which, tells you how much work that you were doing and how it's a lot of work, right? And so like be honest and say like if you really really want to dedicate your resources, or if social media is something that's really important, we need to uncouple it from this current job and make it its own full-time position, if that's the direction if you want to go, right? So I want y'all to grab your folding chair, right, and grab your crown, and like please like own like your leadership era. And as you move on, like have it easier for the people coming behind you. Like make sure that what you're leaving for them is not the same experience that you had, but you're building on it. So I know that was a lot, and I do know that as social media managers, it is a lot, and it's gonna be a lot. And this coming year is gonna prove to be a lot. So I just want to take a moment, and I just want us to all like take a breath together, right? And when we do, I want you to breathe in, and I want you to say, I do my best, and we'll briefly hold. And then when we breathe out, I want you to go and let go of the rest, because that's really the most we can do. Okay. Ready? Okay, breathe in. I do my best. Hold. Breathe out and let go of the rest. Okay. Friends, thank you so, so much for your time and your attention, and for listening to me. I do have a podcast currently out, and it's called Confessions of a Higher Ed Social Media Manager. And I talk to different social media managers in and not in the industry, and we really talk tactics. We really talk about like learning from our mistakes, we really get into the nitty-gritty of those who are grinding it every day. So maybe you'll subscribe and give me a listen. I actually also have a book out, Organic Social Media, and I talk a lot about the concepts that I talk about today in the book. If you do use this link, you can use the code OSM20 when you check out for a 20% discount just for y'all. So thank you so much again for your time. This has been great, and we'll go into questions.
Everybody. Thank you, Jenny. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Sarah Khan. I'm the Speakers Director for PSE Web, and I'm also from the University of Toronto. And Jenny, as you know, is from MIT, author, podcast host, social media genius. This was a really, really great talk. It really, you made me think very differently, not just about social media, but like using AI to sort of take buzzwords or keywords from people who you're trying to influence. I can use that in everything. I mean, I'm
Great.
sending my mom an email after this.
Yes, good.
So
So
thank
glad
you
to.
for the tips and the talk. We do actually have a few questions. I'm going to ask you one before we get into the audience chat. And if you're in the room listening live right now, you will have to use the app for questions. If you don't have the app, just ask someone next to you to put in the question for you. So the question I had, Jenny, was for people who are either starting out or who don't have social media full time in their job description, and who don't have time to be creating reports and analytics and things like that on a regular basis. Do you have tips for where they can find either like templates or shortcuts or quick ways to do this without it consuming their full time job?
Yeah, to be honest with you, my monthly, you want to keep them simple. So my monthly report is actually an email because I've done a whole bunch of different things. I used to have like spreadsheets, and I realized that the people I were sending them to weren't looking at them. So you just want to keep it really, really simple. And maybe, in a monthly report, you just keep it consistent. Like this was our top post, and this was like choose the nuggets that you want to share and just share them every month. And then, if you start to do it for a while, maybe you start showing increases and decreases because you're doing month by month sharing, but really like share 3 highlights, or share like just a handful of numbers, or like metrics that you want to share, and you want to keep it simple as possible. But just to there if you want to see my social media monthly report, just please like ping me on LinkedIn, we'll connect, and I'm happy to share it with you. It's really, really simple. But I know a lot of if you just do sort of like a search, there's a lot of platforms that offer templates out there. Like I know Sprout Social was mentioned earlier. Hootsuite, they do sort of offer these templates or guidelines that you can follow. But my recommendation is just to keep it simple, just keep it authentic, keep it simple.
Beautiful. Thank you. I think I might actually send you a LinkedIn message.
Yeah, please
Um,
do.
The next question is from Sarah Wells,
Yeah.
who's asking, it's about the job description piece that you were talking about. What if you do try to rewrite your job description and you get shut down and you actually end up losing more than you gain? And I think in this case, Sarah's talking about losing parts of your job that you have been doing. You
Yeah.
lose more of those than you actually gain.
Yeah. I see. This is that's tough. I've actually that, and it's also interesting because like I've never had a conversation where someone actually took stuff off of my plate. But I think that when you have this conversation, Sarah, you're making me think that you have to lead, or sort of, or highlight what you want to, like, not stuff, resources. Well, yeah,
Yeah.
that well, that stinks. I would, I mean, in this case, you really want to give them data, like show them like either data of what's taking up what of your time or why you need the extra resources. There's a colleague of mine that she was trying to like really communicate to her supervisor how much like outside requests she was getting, like how much people were asking her to post on their channels, because she had an exorbitant amount. And so she actually recorded her and there are tools that you can use to do this, but she recorded her like laptop and like all of the activity while she was doing things and all of the emails that were coming in. And this actually gave her supervisor finally like a look into how much she her people were interrupting like deep work or interrupting her to ask her to do things. And so they made that a priority to change that for her. So I think that sometimes people don't understand how important these resources are or what these needs are, because they're not doing it themselves. And so if you have them shadow what you do, or if you really kind of show them that the quantitative data of why it's important, I think that can help. So I hope that helps with your question, Sarah. But I did appreciate, I saw that you put you found the Canadian stats for me, so I hope I appreciate that. I will take a look. Thank you.
Right. Sarah also has another question. And this one I think is, I've been hearing it at a lot of tables today. How do we get our organizations to catch up to how social media has evolved?
Yeah. One way that seems convincing, I think, to maybe, higher level positions or leadership positions is if you show them how people within your industry, or even, I feel like everyone has like a peer school or a rival school, like everyone that you compare yourself with, or that people kind of in their minds are competing against themselves. I think that if you show a peer or a rival, like how they're using these channels or what they're doing with these channels, hopefully it's more innovative, hopefully it helps you with your argument. But I think that if you show like how other people in the same industry, what they're doing, how they've evolved, how much more engagements that they're getting, I think that tends to help. Yeah, I think that's one tactic you can try.
Awesome. Is there any other questions? I'll just wait 5 seconds, and if there are none, I have a few fun announcements.
Okay.
Oh, there you go. Julia, who is joining us virtually, is asking, do you have any tips on creating social media governance to ensure branding and consistency are met? That's a very good question,
Yeah,
Julia.
and that's like a really that's a big project if you're talking about social media, like branding throughout the entire organization. Um, we just went through a whole sort of branding refresh, and I when we did it, you have to like get buy-in from people. So I think it's you have to give them incentive or make them want to like be consistent with the brand. So I think it's just meeting with a lot of people, from and the right people, like not just like top down, but maybe even bottom up, like just making sure that you have conversations with them from so they feel invested in the process, and they understand maybe why they might want to be within the brand guidelines. I think I really think it's just a lot of like relationship building, because like a lot of times mandates don't really do, unless you have something, you have got you can put some teeth to it, right? Like if you can say, if you don't do this, there's a punishment. But like at MIT, that's sort of not the case. So we need a lot of buy-in. So it's just a lot of conversations and like talking. And for me with social media, like I don't serve to police, because honestly, if I'm just going after the branding or how they, do their logos, that would be all I did, and it would be like herding cats. So for me, it's more like we have a social media hub, and those that are in line with our brand, those that are doing all the best practices, we pull in their content, so it feeds this social wall that we have, and that's sort of an incentive. Like I like to incentivize them, so and I want them to know that I'm here to partner with them and to amplify their content. But there's some things that we expect in return, and some best practices we expect. So I think sort of incentivizing in that way helps as well. So I hope that helps answer your question. I think there was Sarah. I think was it
Yeah, I think I
Ankrish? Yeah.
missed one.
Hmm.
Krish asked, how do you know that you've done enough? Because increasingly, I feel that it's never enough.
Oh, like in life, in general, as I never feel like I've done enough. But there I think there has come a time with social, especially since my role seems to be evolving, and also I've been doing it for a while. Like I do, there's some things that I've just kind of learned, like you don't have to post every day. It's okay. Your audience will be there. And, and instead of kind of saying like, oh, we're taking time off for the holidays, just don't post during the holidays. It's okay. They'll get it. They'll be like, oh, it's nice, oh, they're taking a break. You don't have to like mention it. It's like those people that say, oh, I'm taking a break from social, and then they're posting during their vacation. I don't announce it, just do it. So I think when it comes to content, like you do what you can, use what you have, um do the best with where you are. And I think that's enough. But like as in general, like social is always evolving. There's always something new. There's always something, I'm always downloading apps. I'm always exploring. Most 9 times out of the 10, or actually even more than that, like most of the times the apps are not anything that are meant for us or that would help us. But I'm still looking and exploring, because I'm the one that people will ask about it, or I'm the one that needs to know for my institution. So I don't know, like social's constantly evolving. So, and I have to know what's going on. I hope that helps to answer the question.
From Nicole. We may be the experts, but we often work with folks within the institution who are not experts. And we've been tasked with running a smaller account, like a department or a service. What's the way? Oh, so sorry, these people have been tasked with running a smaller account. So, what's the best way to support them?
Yeah, I think that if you um have you just offer like guidance, and just tell them that you're there, like knowing that you have a person to come to if you have questions, I think is a huge help. So like I mentioned during the presentation, we have a lot of one person teams, or one man bands. I like to call them one woman bands. I tell them right off the bat, like I'm your team. I'm your team. Think of me as your team. So if you need to bounce ideas off of someone, I'm here for you. If you're finding that someone is trolling you, or you want to ask a question about that, I'm here for you. Also, if there's like content that you particularly want amplified, hit me up, let me know, and I'm happy to give it a share or a like. I find that those are probably the best ways. But just knowing that they're not alone, that they have someone to bounce ideas off I think is a huge help.
Sounds good. We have another question from Darlene, who's asking, what are your favorite tools that you use to either manage or centralize all your social media content? So is it a spreadsheet? Do you use an app?
Um, the quick answer is yes. I use all of those things. I do. there are like our audience totals I keep every month and I put those in a spreadsheet. But one tool we use for content management is Trello. I don't know if you all are familiar with that. It's Trello, and we use the free version of Trello. And it's something that's really helpful to us. We do use Hootsuite, although I think for as far as content management systems go, I think it's all what you like or what is aesthetically pleasing to you. I'm not sure there's one that's better than another. But we also use Hootsuite Insights, which is our social listening and monitoring tool, which is powered by Brandwatch. But yeah, I mean a lot of times, I like to own if as much as my information as possible. So, I'm sort of old school, like, doc Word docs. I write, and I write blog posts for the institution, and we post them so the information is available to everyone. Yeah, 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 I hope that helps. Yeah.
So, and then Sarah Wells posted that Trello is great, but if you're a Microsoft school, you could also use Planner. It's
Oh,
a tool built in Microsoft. Or if you have a budget, something like Airtable is also an option.
yeah, yeah. Thank you for those. But again, I think it's just how your team likes to function, and what speaks to you and your team. Like I know that there are departments within MIT that use Airtable, but our department, just we're Trello folks in our, I know other people, they've like used Asana, and other different kinds of tools. So I think it's just a matter of like kind of really shopping around a little bit and finding ones that suit you and your style of working. And there are a lot of free ones out there. So don't always feel like you have to spend a lot of money for these. Like Notion, there's a free version of Notion as well that a lot of people use. But yes, thank you, Sarah, for the suggestions.
Thank you, Jenny. Before everybody leaves, a few quick announcements. We do have a few copies of Jenny's book to give away. If you're here in person today, we'll have some games at the social and we'll do some prizes. So definitely come out to the social. If you're here virtually, we'll do a quick spin the wheel of everybody attending and do a random draw now.
Oh, how fun.
Yeah, so that's everybody online right now. That's so small. What does that say? It says Crystal. Okay.
Yay.
So Crystal will be in touch. We'll send you an email and get your mailing address and get you one of Jenny's organic social media books. And then last announcement about our in-person social today. It's 30 something degrees outside. I just checked the weather app. It's dark red, so I don't think none of us think it's a good idea to be outside. So we're actually moving it inside at 6:30. So just stay tuned, just refresh your app if you have the app, or check the website. At 6:30, we'll post the details for the social. We'll see you all there. Thank you, Jenny, and thanks everyone for a wonderful first day.
Yeah, thank you. Have a great social, everyone. Thank you, Sarah.
Bye.